أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Let's recite our dua together. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everyone doing today? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay, Alhamdulillah. So we are starting today at verse number 30, inshallah. Is that right? 29. 30, I think, isn't it? 29 or 30? 29. So we must start from Yusuf أعرض عن هذا. Okay, now. Okay, so what happened recently? Maybe I translated that in a dream or something. I remember translating that for some reason, but maybe somewhere else. Alhamdulillah. So what happened before this verse? What's happening in this section of the surah? Very quick recap before we go, inshallah. Yes, yes, yes. Anyone? Who's speaking, ma? Oh, Bismillah. One of the relatives of his wife, not Fir'aun's wife, of the minister. Yes, we understood it the way you said it. Don't worry. Bismillah. No. So one of the relatives of the Aziz came forward and he basically said they should look at where the shirt was torn in order to see who the guilty party is. So that's where we ended. And then basically this is now the Aziz who is now confronted with the situation. And he doesn't, well, he knows what he's doing, but basically they saw now that the shirt was torn from where? From the back. And then what did the Aziz do? قال إنه من كيدكن. He said, indeed, this is from your plot. The كيدكن, the kunna being the dhamir or the pronoun for you, many females. He says, this is your plot. This is what you guys do. You as women, this is just how you are. So he generalizes, and then he also then removes some of the blame from his wife specifically, because now he pins the blame on women as a collective, subhanallah, which is something that we often do as well. When you don't want to accept responsibility, then you pin the blame on a certain group or on a certain gender. There are many, many examples of this, subhanallah. Even if we look at the whole thing, look at something like rape, or when people sexually abuse others, what do they say sometimes? It's because the woman dressed in a certain way. So look, I understand the way women look also does play a role, of course, but at the same time, you can't justify that by saying it is because you look like that, so therefore I need to perpetrate this crime. It doesn't make sense. So it's the same thing over here that Aziz is doing. He's saying you guys are all like this. This is why this has happened. This is because women as a whole are like this. Subhanallah. It's a very weak argument. And then he says, Inna kaydakunna azim. Indeed, your plot as ladies, it is always azim. It is great. You guys always have these elaborate schemes. You are always conniving and plotting and planning. Subhanallah. But now what does he do? That's all he does with his wife. So he doesn't, beyond that, he hasn't actually done anything else regarding the fact that his own wife tried to seduce the young man that was employed or that was taken in to live in their home. That's all he does. You guys, you're all like this, women. It's a woman problem. This is what he says. And then he looks at Yusuf, because now young, beautifully mannered Yusuf is standing there. And this child is also now being wrongfully accused of something. And this is now the minister's response to him in verse number 29. And that's where we begin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. He says, Yusuf, أعرض عن هذا. Yusuf, my young boy. Yusuf, my young lad. أعرض عن هذا. What does it mean? أعرض يعرض. It means to turn away from something. Not a dramatic turning away. It's more, a'rada, more means to ignore something. Just turn a blind eye regarding something. Yusuf, just ignore, turn away. An hada, regarding hada, this. Yusuf, my child, let's just pretend this didn't happen. Just turn away from this. Turn a blind eye towards this act over here. Subhanallah. This also happens, the young child or the teenager experiences something devastating. And what do the adults do sometimes? Instead of actually helping the child or taking people to task where they should be taken to task, what is said? Let's just pretend that didn't happen. Let's overlook that. This is your auntie, or this was your uncle, or whatever. And sometimes it's something very devastating, but then we are not courageous enough to actually make a stand or take a stand against that injustice. So it becomes that same narrative. Yusuf, just turn away from this. Just ignore this. They didn't know what they were doing. Subhanallah. That's all he says. And you can see here that if we look at these components of the minister's personality, he was not, let's say that justice was not one of his core values at this point. However, he turned out, Allah A'lam, but at this point we can see that justice was definitely not one of his foundational core values. He was more concerned about what? Let's just make everything look good, and let's just ignore the scandals, and let's try to just maintain, the public image of what we appear to be. And we learn from this also is that this is not how we want to be as people, as a community. Na'am. Bismillah. His honor. Now, yes. No, most definitely, which is understood, but at the same time, he didn't even seem very angry at her. That's what I always find weird. He almost seemed like, oh, okay, like you try to do this, but it wasn't we don't get the sense from the verses that he was deeply disturbed emotionally by her action, which almost makes you think that this was the way that they had chosen to live. Look, these are all things that we're reading between the lines, and even the Mufassirun say we don't know all the details, but from what it seems to be, it is almost as if they were just comfortable with sweeping this issue under the rug. It didn't emotionally disturb the climate of their marriage very much. Subhanallah. So yes, this is the Aziz and these family dynamics at this point. And then basically he says, you turn away from this, and then he looks at her and he says, and you, my wife, wastalfiri li dhambiki. And istalfiri. What is that? Seek forgiveness. It's an amr. To whom? One female. When you command one female, then how does the verb go? So you say if'al for a man, and for a lady? Yes? For one lady, how do you command one lady? Yes? If'ali, sorry, you were smiling, so I should have guessed that you were saying the es. If'ali, so the ya'ul mukhataba, that is for one female. So the same thing here, istalfiri, you, one female, seek forgiveness. Seek forgiveness, lidhambiki, for your sin. Seek forgiveness for your sin. What does that mean? They did have some concept of a God. There was the concept of some authority at their time. Even though they had a religion wherein they did worship idols, they did have the idea of the overall God. So seek forgiveness for your sin, and also in general make amends. Just try to do better. Istaghfiri li dhambiki. And then he tells her, innaki, indeed you, kunti, you are, or you were, min al-khati'in, of those who? Khati'in. What is that? Those who make? What is a khata'? A khata' is a mistake, not a sin, a mistake. He says, indeed, you are of those who have erred. You have made a mistake. Even in that language over here, what is he saying? Indirectly, what is he telling her? It wasn't a big deal. This was just a little bit of a mistake. It was a khata', something that can be erased. That's how khata' is normally translated. Subhanallah. And then they close the door on this matter. Yusuf, just ignore this. Carry on living here as normal. You, my wife, make amends for your sin. You were definitely of those who made a mistake. Subhanallah. We need to call out evil as evil. And we learn from this the opposite way of how we often are as well. But we learn that this is not the way of the Quran and the Sunnah. Justice is justice, and it has to be served in some way. Subhanallah. Anyway, nonetheless, that's the story of the world. But then what happened? Now, this whole thing happened in the home. They have lots of servants and they have lots of attendants everywhere. So what has naturally now happened after this huge scandal? They thought it happened behind closed doors, but as we know, it just takes one person to spread the news of something, and then many, many others will follow suit. That's the culture of gossip. It's how it goes. You know, you tell your friend, don't tell anyone, eh? When she says, yes, I'm not going to tell anyone. Lo and behold, what happens then? She told someone. Most people cannot contain themselves, and especially with matters of the tongue, they cannot actually keep a secret contained. It's just, I don't know, Allah A'lam is one of the things Allah Ta'ala has tested us with. But if someone swears you to secrecy, you actually cannot even tell a single soul. That is how the amana of the tongue is. And this is why we get into all of these issues. It's because the tongue has not been guarded and protected. Nonetheless, the same thing happened here. The rumors had spread, and this is now what happened. وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ. And said, who said? Niswa. What is niswa? Like nisa, women. The women of who? The women fil Medina. The women in the city. Subhanallah. So who spread the gossip here, do you think? Because the women of the city were not there in the minister's residence. So who spread the gossip? So over here it spread through the servant network. You know, they were also a force on their own. And they now spread all of these words, and then the word got to the ladies of the homes. Subhanallah. So now the ladies of the homes, in other words, the wives of all of the other politicians, the wives of all of the other high-profile men, these ladies, the Niswa fil Medina, the women in the city, they now spoke and they said the following words. Subhanallah. And this is also, if you look at the word choice, Niswa fil Medina, it's unnamed ladies. This is how gossip spreads. It's unnamed people that had just now carried this tale. And the tale had now, you know, it's almost like it was wildfire set alight. This is how it goes. Subhanallah. It spreads without clear accountability. You can't actually pin it on one person or the other because the network of gossip fuels it to carry on. Subhanallah. What did they say? Imra'atul Aziz. The wife of the minister. The wife of the minister to rawidu. She attempted to rawada, to seduce. We had this word before, and we mentioned that the word means that it's a deliberate back and forth, relentless, determined, tenacious. You continue trying. To rawidu. She tried to seduce Fataha, her slave. They call Yusuf the slave of the house. So this young man that works for her, she tried to seduce Fataha an nafsihi. An, against, nafsihi is, what did we translate this as before? Nafs, against his will, mashallah. She tried to seduce him against his will. In other words, she has this young, juicy morsel there in the house. She tried to seduce him and he didn't want it. He didn't want her. But she tried nonetheless. Rawada. She attempted, over and over again to actually try and seduce this young boy. Subhanallah. It's a crazy story. And they're going wild and they're loving it. Because now there's something going on in the city. And this is now the talk of the town. They get off on these things. It spreads now from circle to circle. Subhanallah. And then they say, قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا. قَدْ, indeed. شَغَفَهَا. Shagaf, before you write it down, the shagaf is the innermost layer of the heart. So the actual heart muscle, the pericardium is the thin layer that surrounds the heart, the innermost layer. You know, the heart has many, many different chambers and many different layers. Now, the one that surrounds the innermost part, that is called the sharaf of the heart. So, sharaf is a word in Arabic used for love, but a love that consumes and a love that overwhelms. A very, very passionate, intense. You know, when you say someone is obsessed with someone, the word sharaf would mean that, because it's a love that almost penetrates the core of the heart. That's what the word means linguistically. So that's sharaf. You have lots of different words in Arabic for love. You have hub, you have ishq. You know, you have lots of different things here. We have sharaf as a different one. So it's this love that penetrates to the very core, an obsessed, you know, love, a passionate love. So they say, قد indeed شغفها حبا. If we translate it, though, it's difficult to use that. We can say, he overwhelmed her, شغفها, he, Yusuf, he overwhelmed her حبا, with love. That's just because it makes it sound easier, but you know that what the meaning is actually what? It's that he really, you know, this love that he overwhelmed her with, it penetrated her heart to the core. She was no longer able to emotionally manage herself or to control her emotions. Subhanallah. Like a consuming love. He consumed her with love. He overtook her heart, hubba, with love. Subhanallah. We would say what? No, she's obsessed with him. She's besotted with him. You know, she's completely just overwhelmed and consumed in this love and desire for him. Subhanallah. And then they said, you have a question? Bismillah. There are some accounts of it that you will find in some spaces, Naam, but as to whether it is a set thing, Allah A'lam. Yeah. We don't know it from Quran definitively or from Sunnah definitively, but there are accounts of it that you will find. Naam. So with these matters, it's always easier to restrict ourselves to the facts that come in the Quran and that maybe come in hadith as well. But the rest of it are also built on Israeliyat narrations, you know, stories, fables. So we're not really certain now. Okay, so then the ladies are saying what? Inna, indeed we as the ladies, because we're so model, you know, we don't do things like this. This is, you know, we are above this. Indeed we, lanaraha, certainly we see her. We see her to be. Ara, yuri, also means your opinion of someone. You know, the way that you view something. So we view her to be fi, in. Dalal. In what? In misguidance. We view her to be in misguidance, which is in this case mubin. Clear misguidance. She's clearly wrong. This is what they're saying. What are they doing here? What are they doing to her over here? They are bad mouthing, but also judging. You know, so you gossip and then you say whatever, and then you also judge the person. You don't know, you're not in the position, but it's very easy for you to judge them and for you to portray yourself as being above any of this. Subhanallah. So here we see all the errors of humankind, and we see the errors that we ourselves also perpetrate. Subhanallah. Okay, so then what happens? This was going on. It was her friends. You know, these aren't the proper friends. It's not good friends. They're friends because of what? Because of the shared circles that they move in, and because of, you know, the shared values that they have of money and power and success. This is why they are friends. You can see it's not a good friend, of course. So now it is impeding her social networks, because this thing has now spread like wildfire and everyone's talking about her. So even though she was a strong lady, it obviously is a bit bothersome. So this is now her end of the story. فَلَمَّا, so when سَمِعَتْ, when she heard بِمَكْرِهِنَّ, regarding makr. Does anyone know this word? What is a makr? وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ. What does it mean? To plot or to plan. MashaAllah. There we go. So makr means like a calculated plan. It's not something that you just put together quickly. It's something that you do think of. So it's not always a sly plan, but it is something that is well thought through. That's the difference with the word makr. Whereas the word kaid has more of like a sinister spin to it as well. It has a more dark tone. Kaid is generally something that's a little bit sly, but the makr is something that is just carefully thought out. Okay, so when she heard regarding their plot, their talk, that was now fueling a plan on their side. They were trying to now exclude her and they were speaking badly about her, bad mouthing her in different circles. So when she heard about this plot, what did she do? أرسلت إليهن. أرسل, she sent. She sent إليهن, for them. In other words, she invited all of them. She sent for them, she sent invitations to all of them. So she prepared this huge banquet. This was now as a calculated and strategic argument on her end, is that she had now invited all of these ladies. Subhanallah. And وَأَعْتَدَتْ, and she, أَعْتَدَ, she prepared. She prepared لَهُنَّ, for them, مُتَّكَأً. مُتَّكَأ. I'm not sure if anyone knows this word. In Jannah, مُتَّكِئِينَ فِيهَا عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ. We will be, yes, reclining, mashallah. So مُتَّكَأً, it means she actually prepared for them مُتَّكَأً. Let's see, we can translate it here as, what are we going to translate it as? We can say it here as hospitality. She prepared for them some means of hospitality. That's the translation. But linguistically, what does it mean? It means something that you actually recline on, like a couch. So she prepared these comfortable spaces for them to lie and to relax. So it wasn't a banquet where everyone's sitting upright. It was more sort of a relaxed, you can picture that Arabian setting, those low couches, the low lighting, a beautiful ambience. Some people were maybe playing some flutes there in the background. It was that kind of a scene. So she prepared for them muttaka'an, some form or means of hospitality, which was very relaxed and comfortable, very warm, cozy, mood lighting. And as part of this over here, she had a plan. وَآتَتْ, and she gave. She gave kulla, each wahida, each one, minhunna, from them, each one of these ladies. She prepared their place settings, and for each one she gave them what? Where's the maf'ul? She gave them sikinan. What is a sikin? A knife. She also had a lovely, beautiful, ornate knife that was on each person's place setting. Why? Because she served things that needed to be cut a little bit smaller. I mean, we also get a knife and a fork. It's a common thing. But she specifically made sure that they required this knife that they had to use as part of the snacks that they were served. Subhanallah. And as they were now into the night, and the orchestra was going there, and they were chilled, and they were relaxing, and they're all pretending now that this thing didn't happen. That's how it is, right? We talk all this wild stuff about you behind your back, but when I see you and then, salam, man, so nice to see you again. I really missed you. When we make dua that we are not like this, but this is the culture sometimes. It's absolutely two-faced. So this is how they came. They were all relaxing, enjoying the feast over here, busy cutting their fruits very calmly, chilled, talking about the kids and their husbands and the things that they bought. And then, when they were all relaxed, she then planned it to be this way. وَقَالَتْ, then she said, أُخْرُجْ عَلَيْهِنَّ. What is خَرَجَ? أُخْرُجْ. Ukhruj, come out, exit or come out, alayhinna, before them. Come out in front of them, in other words. Basically, come out in front of these ladies. She's talking to who now? Yusuf. Now, he doesn't understand what is going on here. Why has she called him? Under which guise is she calling him to come? Because, he's not going to come out and parade himself before the ladies, willingly. This was not how Nabi Yusuf was. Yes? No, exactly. So now it's almost as if all the other slaves were coming and they were serving their part, and then it was now like his part to come. So she's basically saying, maybe you'll whistle for the guy or something. Come, come. It's your turn to come now. Come, give them the main dish here, whatever it is. So she says, come out before them. And she planned it exactly, that he came out at that dramatic moment. And then فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ. So when رَأَيْنَهُ, when they saw him, Nunu Niswa, for all of the ladies, when they saw him, أَكْبَرْنَهُ. أَكْبَرَ يُكْبِرُ. To make something great on the fourth bab, to magnify something. They, what they were? أكبرناه, you can say, they magnified the idea of him. They made him great. أكبرناه. They magnified him in their minds. And because of that, they were like fixated on this man, and the idea of him became almost larger than life because he was so beautiful. They saw him as overtaking all of their senses and their logic. Everything just disappeared because he was so beautiful. Subhanallah. We know Nabi Yusuf was a very, very handsome man. Even the Prophet ﷺ said that when he met him on the Isra, he said this man was given so much of beauty. Half of all beauty this man was given. Subhanallah. So he had the beauty and he also had a beautiful demeanor. And when someone has a beautiful inner component to themselves, they just look so beautiful. So they could see this, it was as plain as day, and they magnified the idea of this man, and because of that, everything just didn't work any longer. وَقَطَّعْنَا أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. They cut. They cut أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. Their hands. So obviously it's not like now he came out and then they like chopped their hands off, not like that. It was basically that they were busy cutting, but then they were also looking at him. So it was something like that. Mouths open, and they were trying to continue behaving like normal, dignified human beings, but they were failing. And in that attempt to behave normally, they were now repeatedly cutting their hands. It was just like that. They couldn't bring themselves to tear their gaze away from Nabi Yusuf, subhanallah. And qata'a on the second bab, sorry, before we get there, it means what? Qata'a on the first bab would mean that they cut their hands just once. But qata'a means they repeatedly cut their hands. So as he was there and as he was doing his serving, they just kept looking at him wherever he went and they kept cutting their hands. Subhanallah. You had something to ask now? Yes. Yes. Subhanallah. Definitely. So also, why is she doing all of this? I mean, this is a whole elaborate thing that she had planned here. Why is she actually doing all of this? What is the point of it? Yes, it is because she wanted them to feel the way that she felt when she had now tried to seduce Yusuf. So what is she actually doing? And you and I, we also do this. So you do something wrong, you commit a sin, but then what do? You try to justify it and you want others to understand almost why you committed that sin. Almost as if to say it wasn't that bad because the emotion overwhelmed me or the emotion was so strong that it overtook me. So I want you to also experience that. Because when A'udhu Billah, you don't want to just admit that you are actually wrong. That's difficult. So you rather want to bring another person into that very same space so that they can also feel that way. Subhanallah. So this is the psyche of how it is to sin. So what is the better way to do things? You just admit that you were wrong. You don't have to drag everyone else there as well so that you can now have a whole group of people who are now collectively all facing the same challenge. If you did that wrong, say it and own up to that. Naam. Bismillah. Naam. Yes. It had that, yes, that definitely that tone as well. Subhanallah. Definitely, definitely. She was a very clever woman, mashallah. So they cut their hands And then وَقُلْنَا, and they said, they the ladies, Nunu Niswa, they said what? Hasha lillah. Hasha lillah. What does hasha mean? Hasha is similar to when we say Subhanallah. How amazing is Allah. Hasha. How amazing lillahi is Allah. What are they doing here? When you say Subhanallah, because something is beautiful, what are you actually doing? So you see the sunset and you say, Subhanallah. You're glorifying Allah because the beauty is almost like a theological event in your mind. You know, it's the aqeedah of Allah Ta'ala, you are reminded of that, and then you say, wow, like subhanallah. So here it's as if Nabi Yusuf's beauty was so great that his beauty now caused this theological response in them. Subhanallah. I mean, they didn't even have the belief in one Allah only, but Allah came to their minds because this beauty could only be brought about by something divine. Subhanallah. So as silly as the plot was and the reactions were, it actually did manifest within them the idea that, wow, there is a God. Because this man is so handsome that there must be a God who created this man. Hasha lillah. Subhanallah. And then they say, Ma hadha bashara. So hasha lillah, how amazing is Allah? Ma hadha. This is not bashara. A man. This is not a person. This is not a human. It's not possible for this to be a human. Why? In hadha illa. When an in comes with an illa following, and then we translate the in as not, as a negative word. So it's translated as not. So in hadha, this is not. This is not illa, except malakun. And what is a malak? Like a malaika, which is the plural. This is not except a malak, an angel, kareem, a noble angel. Subhanallah. They said he can't be of the species of men because he's just way too handsome. It's not possible. This is not a man. He's not a person. This is nothing but an angel. So they were just out loud, you know, speaking about this man, and the poor Yusuf, I mean, he just is here fulfilling his duty, and the ladies are all gasping and in awe of him. Subhanallah. If I can just ask this ladies here, if you can just pay attention to me, shukran. So then what happens? Qalat, she then speaks and she says, Sulaykha, she speaks and she now says, she's happy because she got what she wanted. This was the plan all along. So she now says, فَذَلِكُنَّ. So, ذَلِكَ means, what is ذَلِكَ? Like the normal ذَلِكَ. That. And then what is kunna? Kunna is the dhamir or the pronoun for you, many ladies. So if we put it together, it literally translates as that. But it's almost actually saying, so ladies, that. Or that. All of you ladies. You know, she's addressing all of them together collectively. That, ladies, that you've just seen now, we can't even describe it. It's that, you know, it's that malak, that angel that had just walked past. That, ladies, is alladhi, that which. That which lumtunnani fi. You were blaming me. Lama yalumu means to blame. That, ladies, is that which lumtunnani, you were blaming me fihi, regarding it. This is the thing that you were blaming me for. This is the thing that you were speaking about me regarding. You were gossiping about this. You experienced it firsthand. And then she's emboldened. She has nothing to hide any longer. So what does she say? وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ. She says, laqad, definitely, certainly. Double emphasis. Definitely, certainly. رَاوَدْتُهُ. I attempted to seduce him. She says, I did it. That's what I've done for these last few months. I was relentless in my pursuit of trying to seduce this man. I did this. When do you become emboldened to actually admit to something bad? Because this is where she's at now. Before she was perhaps trying to conceal, you know, things and protect her name. Then she brought the sin out into the open. She got everyone to the same level as where she was before she tried to commit that sin. Now that the bar is lowered, what does she do now? Yes, I did it. That's what I did. And this is what we see in society today. It's because it's so normalized for us to speak about shameful things and to see sex being sold all over that what happens? If someone now is pregnant out of wedlock, then what happens? We hold them a baby shower. You know, it's these things are now almost celebrated, subhanallah, because the bar is now so low that these things are no longer shocking or shameful. Everything is just out in the open. It's not a thing any longer. So this is how society becomes corrupted and the standards become low, subhanallah. So she now says, I did this, I seduced him, I tried to seduce him, I nafsihi, against his will. He didn't want it, I did it. She even admits to that. And by her saying this now, where will this news travel to as well? Of course, to the men. So their husbands will know, her husband will know. So it was now normalized because the standard of morality was now quite low, subhanAllah. They all shared in this idea now. So I did this and against his will, fasta'sama. She even says this about him. And he ista'sama. Ista'sama means when you cling firmly to something. So here he clung firmly to his models. Ista'sama. He restrained himself, in other words. It wasn't him. He clung firmly to his ideals, to his values. He actively resisted me. That's what she's saying. Subhanallah. Isma. And isma means what? We always ask Allah Ta'ala for isma. It's like a divine protection that we ask Allah Ta'ala for. Ya Allah, help me to cling to my models, to cling to your nur. So this is what she says about Nabi Yusuf. She even honors him when she's speaking about this whole event that had unfolded. But now, subhanallah, this is where she's at. Look what she says next. Wala'in, and certainly if. Did this desire leave her heart already? No, she was still completely consumed by this desire for Yusuf, to own him, to be completely attached and bonded to this man. Subhanallah. And therefore she now says, definitely if lam yaf'al, if he does not do, if he, Yusuf, does not do ma, that which amuruhu. What does that mean? Amara ya'muru, to command, that which I command him. Now she's not even suggesting it or trying to seduce him. She says, now I'm going to command you to do this. As my slave, I order you to do this with me. Subhanallah. And if you don't do that which I am commanding you to do, she says, la yusjananna. Double emphasis again. The lam and the noon with the shadda. Definitely, surely. What? What is yusjananna? He will be imprisoned. Subhanallah. And she's switching between the tenses as well. Not the tenses, sorry, between the people. She's saying, if he doesn't do that which I command him, then he will definitely be imprisoned. He's standing right there. But she's speaking like this about him, in front of him. He will be imprisoned, wala yakunan, and certainly he will be min as-saghirin. From Saghirin. What is Saghir? Small. Of those who are humiliated or those who are degraded. He will be made to be lowly. I will make his life a living hell if he doesn't do this thing with me. This is the minister's wife speaking about this powerless young man who's basically effectively a servant in the house. She now appeals to her authority and to her power, to her connections. And the threat escalates. Subhanallah. You know, when you're not getting what you want, and then you have nothing to lose. You know, your shame is out of the window. So now the threats escalate and it becomes worse and worse. I'll make his life horrible if he doesn't do that which I want him to do. Subhanallah. So publicly now, she's done this in front of witnesses. Imagine, declared before witnesses. She outright threatens Yusuf to actually do this with her. Subhanallah. This is the story of the world. The innocent are threatened. Yeah. She does have some form of remorse that we will see coming into the surah. Yeah, soon, inshallah. So we'll get there. Right now, she's overtaken by that desire. Now, but even if you are a good person, desire and temptation does this to a good person even. You know, if you have filled your mind with the idea of something so much, it now almost takes over all of your faculties. So this can even happen to a good person. It's not to say that she's bad. We're not morally judging her as a bad person. She is a good person, like we all are, inshallah, but we get very, very overtaken by the bad things that we want. And as you give into your nafs a little bit and a little bit more, the nafs becomes so weak that it cannot actually restrain itself any longer. It's like a muscle that's weak. So the muscle has not been trained to be strong. So therefore, when you approach, you approach it with anything, then it takes hold of that thing completely. So don't get us wrong here. She's not a bad woman. I don't think she's a bad lady. I think she's overtaken by a lust and by temptation and desire. And this is what overtakes good people as well. Wa na'udhu billah. So how do we protect ourselves? Because it's not enough to say I'm a good person. We can all be good people. What must we do actively to help ourselves in here? Because this will be you one day. Maybe you are faced with a very beautiful man there in your tutorial classes at UCT next year, and he's in your group every single week. What are you going to do? The world is telling you just be with the people, sleep with that person. There's nothing to it any longer. Wa na'udhu billah. So what do you do to protect yourself? You have to protect yourself by strengthening your nafs. Because you can't take yourself out of those spaces. You are going to have to go to university and you're going to have to go work. You will be in touch with things that are going to tempt you your whole life through. We don't live in Tarim. And we're not going to make this Tarim either. We're not going to make this Medina. This is where we live. This is Cape Town. So we have to be able to be equipped to live in Cape Town and to live in spaces like this. So it only helps if we start to train our nafs slowly, slowly. Small things. Tell yourself, this week I'm not going to have coffee. I'm a coffee lover. So when I do a nafs challenge, then I always start with my coffee. I'm not going to have coffee for the next 10 days. And then I show myself, okay, I can do it. And then I try a different thing. Okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to try to, wake up this time every single day. It's horrible and you don't like it. It doesn't feel good. But in that, you do build a kind of security and strength that I can actually do this. I'm stronger than my emotions or than my temptations. So give yourself little challenges to try and build your nafs for when the big challenge does come one day. Subhanallah. It's like you often watch these interviews with some of the Palestinians, and then, subhanallah, whole family is killed, house is destroyed, but the person will stand there and say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, with a smile on their face. And you'll think to yourself, how do you do that? Everything is gone, but you look so composed and so content. And one of the scholars was asked about this, and he said it's because when they see any little thing that is going wrong in their lives, what is their immediate response? It's the same. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They've trained themselves to live that way. So therefore, when the big calamity comes, it's the very same response that is naturally there. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So with you and I as well, we train our nafs in the small things or the seemingly small things, so that when that big challenge comes one day, then you can, insha'Allah, ista'sama. You can cling firmly like Nabi Yusuf, inshallah. So look at your life, look at the little things you can challenge yourselves with to show yourself who's boss. That nafs will always try to show you that it's boss. It's never going to go away. We're going to die with that nafs as well. We think maybe when I become a good person, then I won't be faced with temptation any longer. I have news for you. It never, ever goes away. You will be battling with your nafs till the day that they put you into your grave. That's just how we are. But we can find ways to make it easier for ourselves, inshallah. And my dua for you is when you are in that position, may Allah Ta'ala grant that it's so clear to you that you know what you need to do and that you have the strength to do the right thing, inshallah. Look at Nabi Yusuf's response. Here we go. This is what we want. Ameen. Publicly now, he's threatened, he's humiliated in front of all of these ladies. She's telling him, you're going to be imprisoned. You're going to live in prison now. Remember his childhood. Where does he come from? He was living in this very beautiful, sheltered home, and then he was just forcefully ripped out of all of that by his own siblings. Think of the whole story. Put into the well, shoved into the well, picked up by some slave traders, sold as a slave. He came into this house, and now the lady of the house has actually now, thought of this entire plan to humiliate him and to remove his models. Subhanallah. But this is how he responds with all of that trauma. Qala. He says, this is now in the public gathering. She is telling him this: if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to make your life a living hell. You're going to go to prison. I'm going to make you to be of the degraded, humiliated ones in society. No one will want to employ you after this at all. She's giving him all of these threats. He responds and he says, he doesn't even talk to her. He doesn't respond to her. He says, Rabbi. What is Rabbi? My Lord. He talks to Allah Ta'ala in the midst of this terrible situation. Oh my Rabb. He talks to Allah. As-sijnu, the prison. Ahabbu, the prison is more beloved. That's Surah Tafdeel, your degrees of comparison. Ahabbu, more beloved. The prison is more beloved, ilayya, to me. I love the prison more. I love the idea of being locked up more. Mimma, than that which. The prison is more beloved to me than that which yad'unani. They are calling me or inviting me. Da'a yad'u, to invite or to call. The prison is more beloved to me than that which they are inviting me ilayhi, to it. In other words, to the immorality, to the indecency that they are inviting me towards, the prison is more beloved to me. Subhanallah. Can we say that? Think of our systems that we have. Think of Polsmoor. Can you say, the prison is more beloved to me than committing a sin before you, Allah? Because this is what Nabi Yusuf is saying. He's saying, by all means, lock me up, take me away, imprison me, put me in isolation. It is more beloved to me than sinning against you, Allah. Subhanallah. And then he makes dua and he continues and he says, wa illa tasrif. The illa is actually an in plus a la. That idgham has been made of, then it became illa. So illa, if la tasrif, if you do not avert, if you, Allah, do not avert, sarafa yasrifu, if you do not avert anni, from me, what? Where's the maf'ul? If you do not avert from me what? Kaydahunna, their plot. See, not makr, kaid. Because kaid is the one that is sly and it's leaning towards evil. If you, Allah, do not avert from me their plot, if you don't remove this from me, what does he say? Asbu ilayhinna. I will, it's a very interesting word, I will incline. We can translate it as that. I will incline ilayhinna, to them. What is ilayhinna? What is the them referring to? To the women. It's a feminine plural. He says, if you don't avert from me their plot, then I will incline to them, to these ladies. What is Nabi Yusuf saying over here? It's an amazing thing because this is a prophet. So what's so about you and I? He's saying, Ya Allah, if you don't take this plot away from me, I can only withstand this for so long. I'm also a person. I also have feelings. I'm also a person who yields to my temptations. Subhanallah. So he says, Ya Allah, take this away from me so that I do not incline to them. And he says, if I am to incline to them, wa akun, I will be. And I will then be min al-jahilin, of those who are jahilin. We translate it as ignorant, but what does jahil mean? Jahil means it's a type of ignorance when you are overwhelmed by emotion. So the logic has no chance to actually thrive. There's no space for logic because the emotion and the feeling has taken over. Jahilin. And as a result of that, you do stupid things and then you become of the ignorant ones. Subhanallah. I love how the prophets spoke to Allah Ta'ala openly. You can tell Allah, Ya Allah, I like this boy. Ya Allah, if you place me in these situations, I fear for my nafs. I fear that I'm not going to be able to resist the temptation. Ya Allah, I feel like I want to do these things, even if they're bad things. Speak to Allah Ta'ala. This is what we learn from Nabi Yusuf. Open dialogue with Allah Ta'ala about everything. Subhanallah. Just as a linguistic feature there, the word asbu ilayhinna. It comes from the word sabi. What does it mean? Sabi. Does anyone know? Sabiya. We didn't do Surah Maryam yet, eh? A sabi means a young boy or a young girl. Like basically like, in your young adult phases. Let's say like teenage, young adulthood. So the word linguistically actually means that. Sabi, to be young, to be youthful. So what is Nabi Yusuf also saying over here? What is the lesson we derive by him using this word? You will incline to them, but out of what? Out of like this youthful, this youthful innocence, yes, but also being overwhelmed by the amount of, or the onslaught of feeling and the onslaught of emotion and hormones, all in this one cauldron that is boiling over there. He says, if you don't protect me from this, then I fear it will be too strong for me to resist. Subhanallah. He acknowledges that he's young and that he's also taken by certain things, which is a beautiful thing. Because we don't like to acknowledge our challenges often. And this is what Nabi Yusuf is doing. What then happens? Allah Ta'ala immediately responds to his call. As we make dua, Allah will respond to our calls as well. This is an emergency state, saying, Ya Allah, please just protect me from this because I don't know what's going to happen if you keep me in this situation. And I don't want to be of the jahilin. Don't make me of those who are overtaken by emotion, the logic loses, and then I am of the ignorant ones. Protect me, Ya Allah. And immediately Allah Ta'ala, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. So, immediately, istajaba, responded. No gap between dua and answer. Ya Allah, save me. And then there suddenly, you're not able to go to that event any longer. Or your mommy said, no, you can't go there. And you're dying inside. My life is over. How can you do this to me? You're always this way. But maybe that is fastajaba. That's Allah Ta'ala immediately responding to a dua you maybe didn't say out loud, but you were feeling a bit weird about this thing. And maybe your mommy made the dua for you. Or your daddy. And therefore Allah Ta'ala answered. They're not cramping your style. They're protecting you. They're keeping you safe. So responded lahu, to him. Who responded to him? Where's the fa'il? Rabbuhu, his Lord, his caretaker, his sustainer, his Rabb, responded to him, فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ. So he, Allah Ta'ala, averted from him, كَيْدَهُنَّ, their plot. Allah Ta'ala protected Nabi Yusuf from this plot. إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Indeed, he, Allah, he is the all-hearing and the all-knowing. And we'll end with the last verse. So that whole thing ended. All the ladies went home. And Allah Ta'ala responded to Nabi Yusuf's dua. But how? In which form? Thumma, then. Thumma means that there was quite a bit of a pause. It didn't happen immediately, the following thing. There was a bit of a pause. Then, bada, became apparent. What became apparent, we'll see later, became apparent, lahum, to them. And to them means to all of them, to the minister, to the minister's friends, to the ladies. It became apparent to all of them, min ba'di ma, from after. From after, ra'awul ayat. What is ra'aw? Ra'a? Na'am, to see. So ra'aw, after they saw. Al-ayati, the signs. Which signs? The signs that all the ladies lost their mind and couldn't contain themselves after this meeting, because after they all came to that elaborate banquet, what happened then? None of them could actually go on with their lives as normal. Why? Because they were all trying to sneak a peek at Yusuf again, trying to find all types of excuses they could, lay their eyes upon this man again. They were talking about it. It was causing a lot of chaos in the city, subhanallah. So it became clear to all of them after they saw the signs that what should they do? La yasjununnahu, that definitely, certainly, they should imprison him. When there's a problem or a threat, what do the powerful do? They get rid of it, silently. Let's just take that threat away. Let's eliminate that threat. La yasjununnahu, that definitely, certainly, they should imprison him, hatta heen. Hatta, until heen, a time. We don't know how long that time is. Basically, they just said, let's get rid of Yusuf for a while and put him into prison. Subhanallah. Na'am. So the Quran doesn't even comment on that. The Quran almost has silence with regards to that action of theirs to eliminate the threat. Allah Ta'ala doesn't even comment because now the story is immediately going to go where? To what happened in the prison. It's like we all know how morally corrupt this is that Allah Ta'ala doesn't even say anything about it. We just close the scene on that verse over there. وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. May Allah Ta'ala grant that He will always send messengers and messages to protect us and to save us, insha'Allah. And may your du'as always be answered. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Let's recite our du'a together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.